The Black Maw Chapter 1, The Map to Nowhere. Captain Dane Core sat in his dimly lit quarters aboard the Revenant, his fingers tracing the edges of an old data chip. The chip had cost him 3 of his best men, a broken rib, and a debt he had no intention of paying back. According to the whispers in the galactic underworld, it contained coordinates to something ancient, something valuable, perhaps something cursed. Jex, his cybernetically enhanced first mate, leaned against the bulkhead, his glowing red eye flickering. "You sure about this, Cap? Every legend about the Black Maw ends with ships never coming back." Dane grinned, showing off a row of gold-plated teeth. "That's why we bring guns." The crew of the Revenant was no stranger to dangerous heists. They were outlaws, scavengers, and space pirates who lived on the fringes of the law, always looking for the next big score. This was different. They were heading into the Dead Zone. Chapter 2, The Maw Awakens. The journey took them past forgotten star systems and through the remains of shattered warships from battles long past. The deeper they traveled, the more unsettling things became. Distress signals pinged on their sensors, some centuries old, others fresh. Then they saw it. The black MAW.IT was not a planet, not a star, but something else entirely, a gaping void in space, swirling with unnatural darkness. It seemed to pulse, as if breathing. "Dane," Jex whispered. "I got a bad feeling." Dane's reply was cut short as their ship jolted violently. Klaxons blared. "Something's pulling us in," the pilot, Rhea, yelled. She fought the controls, but the Revenant spiraled toward the abyss. A monstrous force latched onto them. They were inside. Chapter 3, The Ship Graveyard. When the crew came to, the Revenant was drifting. The sensors were useless. The void outside was littered with the wreckage of thousands of ships, some from civilizations long extinct, and then they saw it. A massive derelict vessel floated ahead. The ship was unlike anything in known galactic records, its hull covered in twisting, alien symbols. "The treasures inside," Dane said, voice steady despite the chill in the AIR.AS. They suited up and launched toward the ancient ship. The feeling of being watched settled into their bones. They weren't alone. Chapter 4, Whispers. In the dark inside the ship, the walls pulsed like flesh. Something dripped from the ceiling, thick, black, and moving. The air was stale, filled with the scent of rot and metal. The treasure chamber lay ahead, past corridors that seemed to shift when they weren't looking. Then the whispers started, faint voices, speaking in languages both familiar and long forgotten. Jex turned, his cybernetic eye scanning the dark. "Cap, we need to move, fast." Then the shadows moved. Chapter 5, The Thing That Waits. The first scream came from behind. Rhea was gone, just gone. 1 second she was there, the next, an unseen force had yanked her into the darkness. Dane drew his plasma rifle, but no amount of firepower could stop what emerged. A shape, shifting and fluid, formed from the walls themselves. It had no eyes, no mouth, only a void where a face should be. It moved with impossible speed. It wasn't guarding the treasure. It was feeding on those who came looking for it. Chapter 6, The Price of Greed. They ran. Jex fired wildly, his shots disappearing into the black. One by one, the crew was taken, devoured by the Maw's guardian. Dane reached the treasure chamber, a room filled with golden artifacts, alien jewels, and relics that radiated power. The whispers grew deafening. A choice was presented: take the treasure and be claimed by the Maw, or leave it and escape. Dane hesitated, and that was his mistake. Chapter 7, The Revenant's Last Stand. Jex was the only one who made it back to the ship. He activated the thrusters, fighting against the pull of the MAW.AS. The Revenant broke free. He caught one last glimpse of Dane, standing at the mouth of the ancient vessel, his body contorted in agony as the darkness consumed him. Then the Maw spoke. It didn't use words. It used fear, pain, and hunger. Jex screamed as the ship shot into hyperspace. He never returned to the Dead Zone. No one ever did, but the Maw remained, waiting for the next fools, driven by greed, waiting to feed. Bloodstar's Curse. A tale of galactic outlaws, space pirates, and the horrors of deep space. Prologue. The legend of the Bloodstar was whispered in the darkest corners of the galaxy, a tale of riches beyond measure buried in the black void. It was said to be the greatest pirate treasure in history, hoarded by the infamous Captain Dredge before his ship vanished centuries ago. But those who sought it never returned. Some claimed it was cursed. Others believed something far worse guarded it. For Captain Ray's Vortek and his crew of space outlaws, the Blood Star was the ultimate prize, and they were about to discover the terrifying truth. Chapter 1, The Map to Madness. The Black Talon glided through the void, its hull scarred from 100 skirmishes. Captain Vortek, a hardened pirate with a cybernetic eye and a reputation for taking impossible risks, stood at the helm. Across from him, hunched over the holotable, was Vex, his navigator and tech specialist, her pale skin glowing under the dim cockpit lights. "This is it, Cap," she said, tracing a ghostly line on the flickering hologram. "The last known coordinates of the Blood Star." Ray's second-in-command, Crag, a towering brute of a man with metal-plated arms, grunted. "If it's so valuable, why ain't nobody claimed it yet?" Vex hesitated. "Because every ship that's gone looking for it has disappeared." A silence hung over them. Then Ray's grinned, baring his gold tooth. "Then we'll be the first." Chapter 2, The Wreck in the Void. The Black Talon emerged from hyperspace at the edge of a dead system, where the remains of shattered moons drifted in eternal silence, and there, floating in the abyss, was the Blood Star. The ancient battleship was massive, its rusted hull pockmarked with craters and jagged gashes. Its lights were dead, its engines long cold. "Looks like a graveyard," muttered Vex. Ray's cracked his knuckles. "Then let's dig up some treasure." They docked with the derelict ship, cutting their way into the airlock. As the metal screeched open, a rush of stale, rotting air greeted them. The ship was silent, the corridors bathed in a dim red glow from emergency lighting, and then they saw the bodies, pirates, long dead, their skeletal remains still clad in decayed spacesuits. Some had been torn apart, their bones shattered. Others clutched weapons, as if they had died fighting something unseen. "This ain't right," Crag muttered, gripping his plasma rifle. Vex checked her scanner. "No life signs. But something's interfering with the readings." Rays pressed forward, stepping over the corpses. "Whatever happened here, it's over. Let's find the vault." Chapter 3, The Curse Awakens. The deeper they ventured, the worse it became. Strange symbols were scrawled on the walls in dried blood. Whispering echoes haunted the corridors, though their comms detected no voices. Then they found the treasure chamber. A colossal vault door, partially open. Inside, piles of gold, rare gemstones, and alien artifacts glittered in the red light, and at the center of it all, a throne. Captain Dredge's corpse sat slumped in it, a gaping hole in his chest where his heart should have been. His hollow eye sockets seemed to stare directly at them. Vex swallowed. "I don't like this." Rays ignored her. He stepped forward, reaching for a blood-red crystal on a pedestal. It pulsed as he touched it, and the ship came alive. Chapter 4, The Horror Unleashed. The lights flared. The whispers turned into screams. A terrible force surged through the ship, and the corpses began to move. The long-dead pirates rose, their skeletal hands clutching rusted weapons. Their empty eye sockets burned with crimson light. "The hell is this?" Crag roared, firing his rifle. The plasma blast tore through one of the undead, but it kept coming, dragging itself forward, jaws snapping. Then the shadows themselves moved. Dark figures, shifting and writhing, oozed from the walls. They had no faces, only endless hunger. Rays gritted his teeth. "We're getting out of here. Now." But the ship was changing, corridors twisting, doors sealing shut. The Blood Star wasn't just cursed. It was alive, and it wanted them to stay. Chapter 5, Escape or Die. They ran, fighting their way through the nightmare. Crag swung his massive fists, crushing undead skulls. Vex hacked into the ship's systems, desperately trying to reopen their path, and then they heard the voice. A deep, guttural whisper echoed through the ship. "You took what is mine." Rays turned. Captain Dredge was standing. Or what was left of him. His body was decayed, but his eyes burned with unnatural fire. The hole in his chest pulsed with darkness. "You should not have come," he rasped. Rays lifted his blaster. Too late for that. He fired. The shot hit Dredge square in the chest. But the undead captain didn't fall. He only grinned, and the darkness surged toward them. Chapter 6, the final stand. The Black Talon was within reach. The airlock was open, beckoning them. But the horde was closing in. Crag turned. Go. I'll hold them off. No, you won't, Reyes snapped. He grabbed Crag's shoulder and hauled him forward. Vex screamed as tendrils of darkness wrapped around her legs. Reyes fired, severing them. He pulled her onto the ship as Crag leaped in behind them. Punch it. Reyes shouted. The Black Talon roared to life, its thrusters igniting. The docking clamps broke free, and they blasted away from the Bloodstar. But the ship wasn't letting them go so easily. The darkness reached out, clawing.